Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking this Wednesday afternoon to join us today for our webinar series. My name is Simon. If you guys haven't, if we haven't met yet with HOA Simplified, we're today hosting this webinar with a company called Vote HOA Now, which is an affordable, easy to use online voting platform built specifically for our associations, condominiums, any other common interest developments. Um, the team behind the Vote HOA Now is former community managers who still hold their industry designations. So they very much understand the practical realities of running compliant elections and reaching quorum. And so today's goal is simple. I know that there's a new regulation around California electronic voting, and we want to educate our board members. So for this webinar, the company, the Vote HOA Now, is going to help us share how electronic voting can help your community run better elections, improve participation right through electronic voting, and stay aligned with California requirements. Whether you're holding board elections, amendment vote, or any other membership decision that requires. And also, please make sure to send your questions in the Q&A section below. We will try to answer every question that we can, and this will keep the webinar really exciting for everyone and engaging as well. Awesome. So, guys, thank you so much for joining everyone, to all of our board members. With that, I will hand it over to Vote HOA Now to introduce themselves and walk us through the platform. So here's Cathy and Liz from Vote HOA Now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. And thank you to those that were able to make it at 5 o'clock sharp on a weekday. We appreciate it. And, thanks to those that are going to take the time and watch the recording here. So, congratulations, California. Electronic voting is now legal in your state. That's very exciting. We are from Oregon, and Oregon passed their electronic voting law in 2007. So, yeah, we'll kind of give some fun history and talk a little bit about us. But my name's Liz, and then I have Cathy as well. Cathy, if you want to say hi.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Again, like Liz said, thank you for coming. And Simon, hey, thank you for hosting. We love these kind of events. Of course, we are just as passionate about education as we are about online voting. Like Liz said, we have lots of industry experience. Each of us worked at a management company for over 10 years. And so we bring a lot of firsthand knowledge and wish that these were tools that we had when we were managers. So we're always excited to talk about how it works and how you can make it work in your community.
So here at Vote HOA Now, we do provide that full service setup and management, third-party separation. We work with your inspectors, and we'll show you our tools and what that looks like here a little later. Each community that we manage or help with their electronic voting, we build that custom secure voting site with real-time voting results. So we'll show you some examples of that for elections and more. But real briefly, we are going to educate you a little bit of what we know on California and the e-voting laws there so far. But of course, we are not attorneys. So please do take this information and bring it to your other board members and discuss it at your meeting, and then loop in your legal counsel when appropriate there. And then some different the outline, we're going to cover accessibility. We're going to give you some fun stats of electronic voting and some benefits. And then we're going to go over the e-voting authority. Where do you look first? Where do you start? Some resolution and rules that we're going to go over for California, some different service provider options you may find out there, and then what to expect, which will be the best part. We'll give you an overview on how everything looks. So I'm going to turn it over to Cathy to get us started.
Thanks, Liz. Um, okay, thank you. So I just wanted to say, as part of that, welcome, California. We've been waiting for you for a really long time. We have been here. E-voting is nothing new. And aside from California, every other state in the US could use online voting up until now. Your just state statutes just specifically said that you could not. So now you can. Now, it's really fun to look at these stats. We wouldn't be an online company if we didn't have them. So fun to know. Our most often question that we get asked is, what about our older group? Well, we think they're some of our best voters. We have some of our over 50 and over 70 communities that we help reach quorum or reaching quorum faster than any of our other mixed age communities, which is really interesting. And we think that it's because they have the time to sit down, read their emails, follow the instructions, click on those links, go in and register, complete, and submit their ballot. So just some fun little stats here about them. Don't be concerned about that age group. And then, these are always fun to talk about. There should be some benefits, and some of them should be for, some eco stats, of course. Switching 1,000 people saves over 25 pounds of paper. I always think, how tall can that be at 500 pages in a ream? It's probably going to be taller than I am. So that's a lot of paper. And along with that, of course, is that postage, that printing, the stuffing the envelopes. I know that board members, you've probably even done it out there where you sat in a group at a table and went through and stuffed envelopes to send out to your community. So electronically, we're saving time, money, and we don't have to sit around those big tables stuffing envelopes. We can sit around and have fun.
Yeah, sit
Anything
around
I'm
and increase.
overlooking here?
Yeah, sit around and increase participation. So that's even greater. You're reaching, owners from their tablets, their cell phone, their desktop computer. So a lot of accessibility there rather than having to be home and waiting for the mail to come.
And, we all go to our mailbox now once a week, whether we have to or not. So sometimes we're missing important deadlines on those HOA mailings. Okay, so now we're going to go into a little bit of a legal overview. Liz touched on it briefly, but January 1st, 2025, e-voting was made legal for California. Congratulations. What does that mean? I mean, we've been waiting for it for a long time. So what we know, and, we're just going to kind of briefly touch on the most important things, and they're kind of consistent across the industry for all e-voting platforms, but they must authenticate the voter identity. And we'll talk a little bit about how this is done. Transmit a secret ballot to ensure the vote secrecy. This is probably one of the most secret votes you'll ever do, because no one, not even us, when we run a secret vote, can see how any one person voted. And that electronically, of course, does prevent that vote tampering during the transmission, which means that all of your selections should be on that receipt. Another requirement is that your owners are going to get a receipt of exactly how they voted. They're going to know that their ballot arrived there. They're going to know their totals were counted, and their receipt is going to show each selection that they made. So they have something to refer to. Now, this is more than we've ever given them with a paper ballot. It's so professional. It doesn't get lost in the mail. We don't receive it 10 days later and meet quorum in our office, 10 days after the meeting. So, a lot of wonderful things happen here. And then, of course, it must be able to separate voter identity from the ballots. And that really just all boils down to the final report will not show how any one owner voted, just that lotter unit has submitted a ballot. Now, I always like to call this the basics. These are just some of the basics that you should look for. A secure online voting system for your owners to vote. There is another piece of the statute that, and you probably heard it, opt in or opt out of electronic voting. Now, I've been to a lot of legal presentations there in California, and most of the attorneys agree that you should use an opt in process. So that would mean that you send out a letter to your community, you let them know you're adding electronic voting as an option, and that you're going to consider them opted in for electronic voting unless they opt out, and give them the instructions on how to opt out. Maybe it's call the management office and let them know that you'd like to still receive that paper ballot. So you can give those instructions. For those that are opt-in, ask them to just call in and make sure that we have an updated email address for them so they don't miss anything when voting starts. So that is the most practical way to look at the opt-in, opt-out portion. So don't be confused by that. It's so easy. Just consider everyone opted in unless they say no. Now, of course, you must be able to provide an email link for them to click on the website posting or mailer, QR codes, ask your, e-voting provider, or for like us, we do provide the URL, the email address that those invitations to vote are going to come from. And then we have a QR code as well. And there are reasons for having all those things. We may not have everyone's email address, and they could just scan that QR code, or they could click that link and go and ask for their voting credentials. So it makes it really easy for you to capture those emails and those people that didn't say yes or no. And maybe we haven't had any email communications with them. So it really is a great way to give them an opportunity to vote electronically too. And in our side, on our side of things, we see a lot of people clicking on those links and asking for their voting information so they can vote electronically versus turning in a paper ballot. So you will increase participation there. And then, of course, the inspector of elections is still required. Now, this is nothing new in California. You've already been using it. If you are a big community, of course, you may pay a company, an inspector, to do this for you. But in most cases, our under 100 communities are still having their inspector be a trusted individual in the community who has maybe done it in the past on an election committee to confirm that an electronic ballot was not received, open up those secret envelopes, and count those few paper ballots. And believe me, when I say few, you should be able to cut that paper ballot count down by 3/4. So it'll be easy for them to count those at the meeting. You could still have two people, take care of that process. It is still a secret ballot. And so they'll be looking to see if that lot has voted. They'll be opening up that envelope, and then they'll be setting that aside to be counted with the tally. So at the end, you just add those tallies onto the electronic voting tallies, and that is how you announce the results. Now, a few little things that go on that they've asked you to do before you implement online voting. And all we can say is communication, communication, communication. It's just great for you to let your owners know that you're going to offer them this great electronic voting option. Now, remember, you have to send out your notice at least 90 days before your election. And you're going to ask them, we're going to consider you opted in, like I said, unless you opt out. So they should have at least 90 days to before the election to make that choice, and they'll let you know. So that is one thing. So really, it's just an announcement. And, on our end, we're going to show you here in a little bit an easy way to announce online voting in your community. Now, the HOA must track each member's voting preference. This is so easy. At the end, we're going to give you a final report. And that report is everyone who opted in and decided to vote electronically. That is your most current and updated list, and you'll continue to keep that list updated. And each time we run a vote for you, we're going to ask you for a new updated list. So it makes it very easy for us to know who wants to vote electronically. So it's not really that much of a nightmare, but you do have to add the email addresses on there as you get them. So tracking their preference, yes or no. And, those may change over time. Provide paper ballots. You're still going to have to send paper ballots. And really, a good rule is if you do not have their email address or you know that they'll be unable to vote electronically, send them a paper ballot. It's still okay for them to have one. And maybe even you're sending paper ballots and giving the option to provide electronic voting so they can make the choice right there. They'll have lots of choices. Now, electronic voting does require that you have a valid email address. So your owners are going to be the ones that are going to give that to you. Of course, the ballot must be secret. It's no secret. That is secret. All right. Electronic ballots count towards quorum. Every single electronic ballot counts toward quorum. And that means that every ballot you are going to reach quorum much quicker, much faster for your community during a vote. And then the funnest part of all, we all struggle with this. What do we do with nominations from the floor? How do we handle these? They've told us already there are no nominations from the floor in electronic elections. So once you have a good call for candidates period, and this could be your best friend, asking them if they'd like to submit their nominations. Once that period closes, those are the candidates that are moving on to the election. They're going to be on the paper ballot and they're going to be on the electronic ballot. So you won't have to worry about those last minute, raise my hand because all of a sudden I got a compliance letter. Now I'm going to run for the board, when I get to the meeting. So, that's usually how those happen.
There
So
are a lot
no
of other
nomin-
states that, wish they had that written in their statute. Definitely.
Yes.
Because, some documents say you must. So they all vary.
They do, yeah. But it's nice to know that you don't have to have those nominations from the floor. And be clear. We're going to talk a little bit about rules and resolutions. So that will help you decide what should go into those because you really do need to revise the ones that you've been using. Okay, so we've talked about what California is asking us to do. We understand it's secret and all of the little other things that are there. Let's talk about service provider options.
Kathy,
Unless this is a good time to stop and answer a question. I mean, we're ahead of time, so.
I just want to remind everyone to kind of submit questions as we're going. I know this California HOA voting, online voting is a whole new thing. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on below so we can answer them. And thank you, for mentioning Kathy and Liz about the how kind of the voting, online voting still excludes the election regarding regular special assessment. I think it's really important for board members to know that like not everything is going to be e-voting. There's some exceptions, which is going to be regular and special assessments. So thank you for pointing that out for us. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
you're welcome, Simon. It is an important item. Okay, we've talked and we've decided we're going to do e-voting. We got our 90-day notice out. Everybody's letting us know what their email is, and they're all excited to take advantage of this. Now we have to find a vendor. So we're going to look at these vendors. Now, lucky for you, a full service provider is recommended. That is someone who works in the industry. That's what they do electronic voting. They're familiar with how associations are run and managed and how elections are done. And they just really partner with you all the way. It is a true and complete separation between the board members, the committee members, the manager. Everyone stays out of the picture. The online voting company takes care of everything. So it's really nice to say, I don't know who's winning. We haven't counted ballots. They're all secret anyway. And we're all going to find out at the same time who is going to serve our community for the next year. So it really is, when we put the highest security level there, it really is the highest security level. And you have a partner, a vendor partner, who is going to stay with you even long after the vote is closed. Maybe you have a challenge. Maybe someone's asking a question. Maybe they want a recount. And those are all things that your provider should be able to help you with even after the vote. So you're looking for that long-term electronic voting provider. Now, it's good to know self-service portals and management company softwares are not allowed in California. So you're always going to be looking for that full service provider, but it's good to know the difference because you can get tricked. for the self-service. And that just means that typically the manager, the board member, the committee, everyone's involved in doing all kinds of things. We're not following any kind of structure or process or even our rules and regulations because so many people have their hands on it in a self-service. And it is filled with risk. And it just means that, at the end, if you do have a challenge or something, it'll be very difficult for you to recreate everybody that touched everything, every button that you pushed, and every invite, that you sent out. So you are very lucky. There are a lot of states that still allow the self-service option, and it does get confusing, and we will see those communities move to a full service provider after they've
Yeah,
gone
and I
through
think,
something with their
yeah,
self-service.
and what does you know, you want to make sure, which we'll cover here soon, are they going to give you the reports that you need for your community when you go to that meeting? And we'll kind of show you the different reports that we have to set you and your manager up for success as well. So let's just dive in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do.
Liz,
Okay.
Yes.
I got a quick
Yeah.
question, Kathy.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about some challenges that can be avoided. And just based on your experience, I think it'd be helpful for our board members to know, to see like what are some example of challenges that you have seen that came across that that board members can know about.
Yeah, I think, Kathy and I both have heard from, maybe other managers or boards using different companies, and they had used our services. But for example, most importantly, your list, we're going to show you, the who voted and who did not vote list. If your vote is secret, you are going to need that information to make sure that you're not taking those paper ballots and the electronic ballot. So, setting yourself up for success is, of course, making sure that they have that security in place where an owner can't just, like SurveyMonkey. I know some people have used that before where they can't just keep, casting their vote over and over and it's not actually tied to a registered owner. And then the reports, I've just heard awful stories of managers not having the reports they need in order to get those final tallies and the results announced that evening. So setting yourself up for success, which Kathy and I pride ourselves on,
Yeah.
is trying to just, educate you on.
Yeah. Well, I think another challenge that we hear managers that they are grateful for a full service provider is when we're working with a condominium and the ownership vote is a percentage. That can be a complete recipe for disaster right there. If you
Yes.
don't know how to calculate percentages quickly at a meeting to be able to prepare the results. And, having a provider that knows and understands those types of things that really can help you. So, when you're self-serving or your provider doesn't understand percentages, that could be very challenging
And
as
when
well.
you're
So be
creating
sure to
your
ask.
rules, yeah, when you're creating your rules as well, do you have a process where if an owner is delinquent, their vote is not valid? So you want to make sure that the vendor you are working with can assist you in removing any votes that were placed by delinquent members. So lots of different scenarios, but good thoughts to think ahead through your whole process, create those rules and resolutions and have them in place and update them on an annual basis, fresh right after your first electronic vote. Relook at that resolution at your next board meeting and change anything that needs to be changed.
Yeah, the funny one that comes up off and on is what do we do during a tie vote? Because it still could happen. Okay, that was a great question. Thanks so much. So we're going to just go over a little bit of the process. We like to have our contracts 2 weeks before you want voting to start. So aside from that 90-day period where you're notifying your owners that you're adding electronic voting, your vendor is going to require a certain amount of time to get you set up, of course. So for us, we create a custom voting site for each one of our associations. Like Liz said, said, we do assign a vote manager to each community. They're kind of like community managers, but they're vote managers, and they have a portfolio and they run votes for all of those clients. So you've always got a vote manager assigned to you. They are available to answer questions and take phone calls and those types of things. The one thing we don't do is talk to owners. If an owner calls while we're setting up a vote or a vote is running, we always kindly refer them back to the community manager to ask those questions, because we do want to make sure that we're keeping that third party separation. Now, once we've created your site, we've assigned your manager, you send us everything. We're going to build the ballots. We're going to build the whole entire vote for you. We're going to make sure that we're meeting all the parameters of the California state statutes and maybe any specific document requirements that you have that you've shared with us. And, everything we do is customized. So every client is asking us to do just something a little bit different, but we keep a record for everyone. So year after year, even if your board changes or your manager, we'll still be able to reflect back and make sure that we're picking all the right things. Now, we're going to build your ballot. We're going to load your owner data. We generate random registration codes, and this is tied to the lot or unit, and it is tied to that primary voting email address. So those are the kind of language or words that you're going to want to use with your owners. We need one primary voting email address and what you're asking them for. So we're going to load all those. We're going to generate those codes. Those are the codes that we're all going to work with during the vote. So whoever is in charge, typically the manager, will be working with them to get all of that information for the ballot and the Excel spreadsheets. But once the voting, everything's set, we've got approval, everybody's smiling like a toothpaste commercial, we're getting ready to open the vote. So we open it. The owners are going to receive an email invitation to vote. Most of the voting systems are web-based and they all receive an email. So very important, like we said early, to share that email address it's going to come from, so they can add that to their safe sender list.
And then I may as well just jump right into the owner viewpoint and just kind of show how all the rest of this is going to work, because we have the contract, we built the ballot, it all looks good, the manager reviewed it. Now let's go over what's the first piece of information that goes out to your owners. Well, it's going to be that notice to your community. And so this is just some sample language that we provide as tools to implement and put into your notice. We're excited to have the electronic voting option this year. Each property with an email on file is going to receive a ballot from blank email address. Here is also the voting website. If we don't have your email on file, like Cathy mentioned earlier, you're going to have the option to click that link and request your credentials there. And, just kind of a 1, 2, 3. It's just really easy. It's going to take me longer to explain it, I'm sure. So here's an example of the invitation invite email. Every message is customizable and addressed to every owner. You are going to have your community monument up top. So you can have a nice photo, or we'll create a nice graphic so owners know it's
coming. Or your logo.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
A logo.
Yeah, or a logo. And then in this case, the message is addressed to Mary, and the title of the vote is customizable. We do like to leave this short, just your community needs your participation to elect this year's board members. Very simple. And in this case, Mary has 3 properties, and so we do combine that into the one email, making it very easy. And the vote weight, according to their documents, is 1 per property. So this ballot is weighted at 3. So we do kind of provide all that information up front, and then click here will take them right to that voting site. And then here is that personal registration code that we use to authenticate the owner here. We do like to put when the voting end date and time is, and it can be signed off by the manager or the board. In this case, we're going to click here, go to the voting site. Again, have that custom banner up top. The registration code is going to automatically pre-fill from that email, so you don't have to copy and paste or write it down. We make it very easy. And then each code can only be used one time after you have registered. And let's just say that they don't know their registration code. There's that contact us button there at the bottom where they can request their credentials, but we have everything we need. need, and we're going to register. Now, registering here, you're going to put your first name, last name, your email address. You're going to set a brief password. This is going to collect your electronic signature for every vote, which does follow that federal law for an electronic signature, the Federal Uniform Electronic Transaction Act. So you may even get more emails after the vote ends than you had before. So that will all show in the reports. And now we are at the ballot view. You'll see up top, you have the voter information, any account numbers provided on that owner data we got from the manager, and then the properties or units, and then the vote weight will show whether that's one per property or percentage. And we will have the ballot and instructions here that is all customizable. Every ballot can have an attachment with an unsizable, like limit PDF. I think we've seen PDFs that are hundreds of pages if you have large amendment votes. Just think of all the paper you're saving doing it that way as well. And owners can download it, save it on their computer or device they're using and read it, throughout the vote as well. Or you could just pull it up in your web browser. So and then we do have primary choice options. You can vote on candidates or quorum only. These are different features. And then we have our breadcrumb trail here at the bottom that kind of take you through those steps. So here's an example of some different annual meeting items you can have. Let's get last year's annual meeting minutes approved. So definitely include that in your voter packet and have owners approve or disapprove. I know here in Oregon, we had the IRS revenue ruling 70-604 that our CPAs recommended be approved at our annual membership if we needed to. So that's something you can also include on there. The items are customizable item language and yes or no wording up to 3 choices. You do have that summary box on the right-hand side as you're making selections and it's highlighting in green. All votes cannot or must, you must select, you cannot select more than allowed, which is great because with paper, they could check anything, right? So it makes it very easy there. Here's an example of the candidate selection. So you can make it really fun. Everyone can have the opportunity to have their photo on there. You can embed a nice bio. We've even seen board members take the extra step like Barry here and create a YouTube video. So lots of different things, or you could just see what it looks like with the name and a bio or just a name. Now, as you're making those selections, again, it's populating here on the side. You have your attachment. Another feature, you can have a write-in space if that's something that is in your rules there. And then on this ballot, you can select up to 3. So you cannot select more than 3. Of course, I have 2 selected here. So we make it very easy. No more invalidated ballots. Confirmation screen. Self-explanatory, but we do have a lot of red highlighted areas here. Review and confirm your final choices. You can hit change. You can hit the back button. Lots of prompts here informing me that I've only voted for 2 out of the 3 candidates, so I can go back and vote for another if I'd like to. But once my vote is submitted, it is final. Success, my vote is complete. I have the voting screen not only on my browser, but I was emailed a receipt of exactly how I voted. And that email is sent to the email I registered with, so it is valid. And then after you voted, you won't receive any more voting email invitations, and votes are tabulated instantly. All right, real quick, Cathy, do you want to go over the real-time updates and results?
I will. Yeah. So this is one of the fun tools, of course, that you'll be given access to or your manager. And these are real-time results. We're going to send you an update, every 2 to 3 days or once a week, depending on how long your vote is going to go. But we're also going to give you a link where you can click on it and go in anytime, 24 hours a day, and you can look and see how many people have voted and where you are at with quorum. So for example, here, we're just showing you the general general status. You'll never see who's winning or anything. We entered in 132 accounts. We received 110 votes. We're at 83.33%. Gosh, don't all of us want to reach that high of a quorum for every single meeting? That's a pretty good turnout. But you'll be able to look, and it is a fun tool, and you can check quorum anytime you'd like. Now, once the vote is over, we do send a set of certified results. It's going to have that same information there at the top with the quorum, how many people voted and what the quorum was. It's also going to show those candidates in the order of the most votes received. So we had 3 positions going in this vote. Candidate A, B, and C are the ones who had the most votes. And it's nice to know what the other candidates, this is really designed for you just to pop right up at your meeting on Zoom or virtually, so you can show exactly what candidates received the appropriate amount of votes. And then down there, you can see 2 of our owners just check quorum only. They weren't sure who the candidates were and they didn't feel comfortable voting. Now, we've also got those important reports down here at the bottom circled in red. You're going to need the who voted. This is every lot or unit that voted in your community on an Excel spreadsheet. So you can see that they submitted a ballot, and we're going to show you here what that looks like in a minute. IP address, date, time, everything gets logged there, and who did not vote. This is going to become the most important report for your inspector or your person that you've selected. They're going to have to know that they're not accepting a duplicate ballot. So they're going to use that who did not vote report to accept any paper ballots. And then, once they've accepted a paper ballot, they can't accept anymore. So it really does help with duplicate ballots. And then, of course, you are going to get a result for your meeting minutes and anything else that you put on that item, questions that you might ask. Now, we've only got a few minutes left here, so we want to make sure we can answer your questions. These are what the spreadsheets look like. They're simple. They're in Excel. I know if you're like me and older and stuff, I get a little nervous, but there isn't any way that you can mess them up at all. They're just simply going to give you the first name, last name, the registered email address. This is the best column. Now, this is the email address they registered with. It could be different than the email address that we sent the email invitation to vote to. And you can see some examples here. We've got, Jim, he changed, we sent it to Jim Reyes, but he really goes by Jose. So he signed in with his email was a little different, or his name. So we give them a chance to update everything. So you're always going to have the most updated email addresses. Now I can't see one that's different.
David.
Here, so.
Yeah, you could see here
that.
Oh yeah,
David
Johnson and then D Johnson. So, just kind of showing a little difference there. But you can see the date it was casted on and the IP address and all of
their
that.
Voting weight, whether it's percentage or 1 per lot or unit, is going to be there, and any other information that you've given us on that Excel spreadsheet, that you might want to see on a final report. Some of our bigger associations have neighborhoods and districts, and they like to sort by different things. So if that's something you might like to do, you might add a column with some kind of sorting feature on there. Now, before we move on, any other questions we need to answer? Okay. So getting started is really easy. All any provider needs to have to provide an estimate to you is the name of your community, the number of lots or units. We understand a lot of you are small. You fall within our 1 to 100 range. We're going to show you an estimate here in just a few minutes, so you can kind of get an idea of what that might look like. Timing, this is really important. We talked about that 90-day notice, and then I said, make sure that you're leaving enough time for your voting provider to set everything up so you get to review it, approve it, and be completely 100% ready to start the vote. So, 2 weeks or more is great if you're sending in a contract. And then, of course, all of our estimates have lots of information on them, including a presentation and FAQ. Oh yeah, Liz is pulling it up right now. So we've got, want to learn more, you can come to any of our educational webinars. We do those on the first and the third Thursday of every month, all throughout the year. And then, of course, everything that we do is all bundled together in the first vote in a year. So this is typically what you're going to be looking at. We did 75 units because we know a lot of you are under 100 homes. So it's like 1 to 100 is that pricing category, just so you can see everything included that we talked about, the custom voting site, the full service setup and management for $597. And then you say, oh gosh, we love that. Let's do our amendment vote. Any additional votes during the year, $325. So we do give you that discounted price to take care of those things if you have other votes that come up that you want to run. We have a lot of additional services, but at this level, we don't see a lot of our clients asking for those. So these are really the two most important ones, the first vote in a year and the additional vote. Oh, let's go back to that because I wanted to say, click that green button to get started. Right there. You just click that green button to start a contract. So we make it really easy. Everything's automated. And then, of course, 2 days from now, you're going to be trying to explain it to someone and you're going to have a question. You can send us an email anytime. We'll answer your questions at info@votehoanow.com.
Awesome. Well, Kathy and Liz, thank you guys so much for the presentation. And like I said in the beginning, I know that the online voting is super new to California, and I know that you guys are based in Oregon and you guys had a lot of experience with online voting. So it's great that you guys kind of came on and kind of educated us on how online voting works because again, like there's sometimes I feel like a lot of communities are kind of sick of kind of paper stuff, right? So like if they want to do online voting, it can save trees and easier process, hopefully for everyone. With that said, I actually have some questions that are actually frequently asked for our community, which is I know that there are some big associations in small associations, but what would you say like the best method to reach a quorum, especially for associations where the participation can be low for their community?
Yeah, that's a great question, Simon. And reaching quorum is really what we want to do at every election. Or if we're, doing those amendments, they have a higher quorum requirement in most cases. Going with an electronic voting company has some values in that because we are sending out an email invitation to vote every 2 to 3 days. So that means that we're reaching your owners more often, more frequently. So we hope they'll take the opportunity to click on that link. With paper, you send out one notice and you don't know what happens. It doesn't come back. It's expensive to send another postcard or something out. You always want to make sure you're just reaching the people that have not voted yet. Those people that have already voted, they don't want to hear from us again. So, those are some of the values. And reaching quorum, electing your board. You have a duly elected board to move through the year to represent your community in anything that would come up. And we,
And
we
I would
truly
just
believe.
add, plan ahead. 90 days, that's gonna fly
Mhm.
by. So start now. Start looking, creating those rules and looking for a provider that can guide you through that. Work with your manager and your legal counsel. Start reaching out to your membership and asking them to update their information on an annual basis if possible. I know when I managed my condos or high-rise towers, I was always asking for, please, update your license and your email and contact. I can get a hold of someone, if I need to in an emergency. So just updating those records on a frequent basis is so important.
I think that's actually always a good reminder to for us as a managed company, but also as board members as well, to have a really good data for the homeowners. Because I think, as we have a lot of, communities that transition over to us or like have new communities, I think a lot of the times we don't get the right email or addresses for their properties, right? Because obviously some homeowners might own a property in California, but they might live in somewhere, I don't know, down in Florida or in New York, right? So we want to make sure that our communication, especially important matters such as election. These notices go to their emails and their physical
Yes.
as well. So I think that's always a
Yeah.
important reminder for all of our board members.
Yeah, I think take every opportunity you can to ask for updated information. Like, hey, while I'm talking to you today about your work order, let's update your email address. Let me see if we've got the correct one for you. It's just, or maybe a board member at a meeting, let's update our email address. It's just a simple pad of paper sitting out with a pen, hanging out there that someone could leave their email address or lay their card down or something like that, where you could capture that most updated information.
Right. And I guess that kind of leads to my next question because I know there's a different methods of voting, right? I mean, obviously you guys focus on e-voting, and you guys already kind of gave us a background. But again, I think just kind of go back to run it again. So how do you run kind of like a mixed election? Because obviously there are going to be some homeowners kind of don't do e-voting. So like I guess how do we run this kind of mixed, this hybrid model really clean for all of our communities?
Yes, that's a great question. And, most of our meetings these days are hybrid in one form or another. You're going to, if those owners who have paper ballots, those are the ones that, we are always going to return those paper ballots to us. So in a hybrid meeting, we're going to have a mixture of electronic ballots. So we're going to have a mixture of paper ballots. And we might even have a mixture of I'm in person or I'm attending virtually. So what can we do at a virtual meeting? Very little. Paper ballots are going to have to be returned to the office before we get to that virtual meeting. We can still have those people open them and count them, in front of the camera, which is a great, option at a virtual meeting or at an in-person meeting. They're still going to step aside and count those few little paper ballots. And I think I said this earlier, but you really will have less paper ballots when you're using electronic voting. And people are going to come and try and have fun at the meeting instead of having to worry about all the tallies and counting and everything. They'll be able to, thank their board of directors going out and welcome the new ones coming in. It just really does give you more time. I go back to this thing in the olden days where this was all designed. HOAs were designed for us to have a community and to have fun together and be good neighbors. And it's still, the thought process is still there, but we get bogged down with some of this paperwork and everything, and we forget that we're all neighbors and having fun together. And we're watching each other's houses on vacation and hopefully catching a fire in the middle of the night or something, to help save lives. A lot of things go on in communities these days.
That's a very good point, Kathy. I think, these board members are all volunteers who are just trying to keep the community, in a good place, and hopefully keep the values up, right? So I think it's great, like what you said about, just we're all neighbors inside the community, so they should kind of try to encourage that happy and
Yeah.
kind of friendly environment for everyone. I think that's great. Uh, if anyone has questions, please feel free to put them down in Q&A.
Mhm.
And if not, we're happy to kind of end this webinar series early. And if you have any questions, please feel free to engage me, us at hello@HOA Simplified, or contact Kathy at Vote HOA Now, or Liz. Again, before we kind of end this webinar, I just want to say that because we're all new to this in California, hooray! To opt the amended rules, I just want to encourage all of our board members to follow, the operating rule process of, general notice of the proposed change at least 28 days before adoption, just making sure those rule change and those kind of procedures are taken in place before you enforce all the e-voting to your community. Just wanted to make sure that's out there. So
Mhm.
if
Yeah,
anyone doesn't have any,
planning ahead is key. I mean, you really have to almost start like after your election, get started on the next one right away.
of course, 100%. And if you want to, bring this e-voting online, no, you have to
Yeah.
do some operating rule change. So I just want to remind all the board members about that. Awesome, Kathy. Liz, do you guys have any last words or comments before we end?
Yes.
Um,
Yes. This all may seem a little scary and it is new. It's been tested and tried all across the rest of the US. It's working. We're helping communities reach quorum and elect their boards, pass amendments. Our amendment rate is we're closing amendments in 3 months, and that is unheard of when you're walking around the community knocking on doors. So really is a time to consider electronic voting when you've got those high quorum percentages. And don't be afraid. Your owners are expecting you to bring something new. And wouldn't you love to report at your meeting that you've saved this much money by going to electronic voting, and all of those funds can be rerouted to projects in the community or other things to help with those budgeting purposes? I mean, those are the kind of things you want to report at your meetings, and the kind of things that your manager wants to feel comfortable saying too. So it really can help with that. So if you have thought about it and you haven't done it yet, start looking into it, educate yourselves, make sure that you're making all the right decisions, and just get started.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Liz and Kathy, and thank you, board members, for so much for joining us. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Vote HOA Now. Thank you again for joining us on this Wednesday evening now. Thank you again, Kathy and Liz, for you guys' great presentations. And hopefully we can see you guys again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.